Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. So just take 3 minutes, listen to these shout outs. They're all great companies. Then listen to our guest, then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. And if you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to their website, check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. You put one of their units in your gym lobby or your main school hallway, it's going to be a magnet for kids, for coaches, teachers, sponsors, you name it. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, we were a Huddle school, and our coaches, our student athletes, our parents just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Join the 8 million users. Go to huddle.com. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school. Tremendous success, and so will you. It's Snap Raise if you want to raise money. Snapraise.com. We'd also like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. You've heard me say before, probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. We use it for home games, pep rallies, signing ceremonies. It's just tremendously versatile, and their customer service is outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their great products today. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team turn you into a social media marketing genius. Whether it's a simple social media post or an entire newsletter, the team at Gipper will have you up and running in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com and don't forget to mention the podcast. We also want to thank Hometown. Hometown is changing the game for schools and organizations with their suite of solutions that includes things like fee-free fundraising. How about the number one digital ticketing provider, athletic website construction, and a whole lot more. Go to Hometown. If you're an AD, a coach, even a principal, they're going to help you save time, raise money, and bring your community together. That's hometown.com. We want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. It's very reasonable. It's only 20 months, totally online, and you'll also complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to thank our good friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you will use every single day. And even if your state has a different platform, you can be a home campus school. Go to homecampus.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. That's homecampus.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program, kids, coaches, teachers, parents. And you may be surprised, just like our school, most of your stakeholders are going to be very satisfied. And having that positive data is extremely valuable. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them show you how they can take your school from good to great. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We've got, according to our audience, and me too, one of our favorite Wednesday Wisdom guests, regular listeners will recognize the name Dr. Courtney Beck. Dr. Beck was an original podcast guest, over a year ago now. If you missed that episode, you need to go back and listen to it. She has an incredible background in athletics. She was a high school and college star. Oh, by the way, she was an All-American athlete. She's been a coach. She's now a leader, a mentor. She hosts her own very popular podcast. I'm going to let her share all that. But Courtney Beck, welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jake. I am absolutely thrilled to be back, and I have an exciting message today, so I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay. Well, again, you and I were talking before the show. I kind of know a little bit where you're going. What do you have for our listeners on Wednesday Wisdom?
So, today we are going to talk all about just life lessons, the lessons that we learn through sport that we can translate over into our career. So, this is certainly going to be applicable to perhaps ADs and coaches to understand the perspective because, as you said, I certainly have experience in sport, made it to the elite level in the sport of gymnastics. I would go on to compete for the University of Florida. And as you mentioned, NCAA All American. And so I've experienced various levels of sport. But now that I am kind of far removed from that, I want to talk about just those lessons that I have been able to take on with me into my professional career. And then, of course, as you just mentioned too, starting my own business. I'm really here to help to inspire student athletes, perhaps they're current student athletes, perhaps they are recent graduates. And I'm here to share my experience because I know what it was like feeling perhaps lost right outside of my undergraduate degree. I came home, Jake. I remember it literally like it was yesterday, where I came home and dad's like, okay, what is next? And so I say this because I had to think about how I was going to kind of turn that page and open that brand new chapter, how I was going to move forward. And so there's three main concepts that I would love to speak about today. Number one, visualization, the power of visualization. So I learned about this through sport because, long story made short, but when I made it to the elite level of gymnastics, just like, of course, any other sport at the highest level, injuries occur. And I had an injury. I ended up actually going out of the sport for about 3 years. Well, this is my senior year in high school, Jake. I am ready to make that comeback and go back to the sport that I love the most, gymnastics. And so it really was. I learned about the power of visualization through how was I actually going to make what seemed like, quote, impossible actually possible. So I started small. I highly encourage student athletes, even those high school athletes, to journal those short-term goals and those long-term goals. What do you want to achieve in life? And that could be, like I said, into college. That could even be well after college. But the one thing I do want to bring up is there's definitely something powerful about delayed gratification. And what I mean by that is those goals that really take months, that take multiple years. Because when you actually meet those goals, talk about like a high level of satisfaction. But the only way to get there is to map it out. Short-term goals and long-term goals provide us direction. And so, kind of going back to what I was saying before, Jake, when I had to map out what was that next chapter going to be like in my career now, I went back always to my sport experiences, those lessons that I had learned, and how I was able to make that comeback an actual story of success was through writing down my goals. And so I did. I would translate that over into my career later on. I went into corporate. At that time, Jake, dad had always done sales. So I was a little lost. So I'm like, I'm going into sales now. But it was that idea of like, okay, what can I achieve in this? And through that, not only becoming like part of the circle of excellence, that took time. A shout out to my manager at that particular moment in time, Bart Revels, but having that strong support system, allowing them to hear your goals so you could celebrate them along the way because those small wins really create that momentum to build to eventually get you to that long-term goal. The second concept that I learned about was confidence. And I say this because, as we know, there's this fine line between, arrogance versus confidence. And so I do want to mention the confidence that was instilled in me in sport and how I was able to kind of get back on track in my career. And then later on, kind of now, present day, it's been a year, but to start my own business was the confidence that I gained through the sport of gymnastics. I will never forget, I was like 12, 13 years old. Of course, like I mentioned, I was at the elite level. Anytime that my coach told me, Courtney, you are ready to do this skill by yourself. And he would look me in the eye. I just knew, Jake, I'm like, I'm ready for this. Like, no fear. It's all go. Okay. And I don't know that particular moment. I never thought about, oh, kind of what if, like, what if? I just went. And even if I fell that first time, it physically taught me through the sport of gymnastics how repetition builds that confidence. So, of course, as we know, you have to have that courage to take that first step, whether it is in sport, whether it is in career, starting your own business. When I started Plenty of Positivity, Jake, I remember when I pushed send on LinkedIn, there's no turning back. Like you are doing this podcast, you are doing this book club. But I stemmed from that confidence that I had built in sport that, hey, if I make a mistake, as long as I learn from that mistake, there's nothing wrong. You keep moving forward and you keep progressing, but inevitably mistakes are going to happen. Kind of speed bumps along the way will come and kind of deter you never thought were coming. And how do you adapt to that? That's another big concept. I'm not going to keep in my three, but adaptability, being able to maneuver when you have an injury in sport. Obviously, that wasn't planned, but how can that build character? Well, you go back to the drawing board. For example, when I had my elbow, I was still in the gym grinding, even though I didn't have an arm technically, right? It was in a soft cast, but I was able to still keep those goals moving in motion. And the last concept I would love to talk about, I am extremely passionate about this one, Jake, and it's more of an idea, but it's the idea of never fear failure. What do I mean by that? Well, it's the idea of trying something and hey, if it didn't go as planned, you could always assure yourself I can never regret that. I tried it. Hey, it didn't work. And that's what I tell myself through when I went through that comeback. I can never regret that I never tried it. And thankfully I did. And that's why I just always encourage, youth sports, even. Sometimes you get to that point where you're like, oh, like I want to quit. It's getting tougher. I'm maybe getting more injured, but always stick with it because you never know when you're on the other side what could truly be. Like you just don't know. So always keep pushing. But the idea of never fear failure, I was able to take that from that comeback, understanding what I had gone through into my career when I started my business. It's more of like more social entrepreneurship, focusing on social impact and overall like the message. But the fact that you do, like you have to put yourself out there and inevitably you will make mistakes, but you learn from them. And before the show, we were talking about this, but recently I mentor a couple girls, and one in particular, we were having this conversation and just about this idea of never fear failure. Like, would you ever go for something if in fact you knew like, hey, maybe I may make a mistake? And the response was actually like, no, if I knew I was going to make a mistake, I probably would not go for it. And so I don't know, that just really stood with me. And this is why this concept is like, I'm really passionate about it because I see so much human potential out there, whether it's friends that come up to you and tell you, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Like, how should I do this? How should I move forward? But to really just go for it because the image that I always have, and I hope this can maybe help somebody, but I mentioned this in my first speaking engagement this year in March, but I ended the speech with the image of a rocking chair, and people probably were thinking, where is this going? And so it's a sport management conference. Where does the rocking chair come into this? But it's the image that, God willing, I'm 80 years old and I'm sitting in that rocking chair and I'm reflecting back on my life. anything that came to mind that I wanted to do, or that inner voice that was saying, "Hey, Courtney, like, look over here. Why don't you try this?" If in fact I did not go for it, I would feel regret sitting in that rocking chair. And so that's the way I live my life is to, if it's something that is close to your heart, that has good intent, good purpose, go for it. Because otherwise, you just, like, at least personally, I would not want to feel that sense of regret. And so I just urge, like, if it's student athletes, either in college currently or coming out of college, but map it out. You don't have to take that first step right away, right? You do some due diligence. You think about how you're going to direct yourself. Like I said, if it's those short-term goals, what do you envision? Where do you want to go ultimately? 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road. But taking those small steps, and the key truly is just keep the wheels moving. If it's getting that first internship, and hey, maybe it's not like the dream internship, you never ever know who you're going to meet along the way. And so that's one thing I always want to say, because that's what helped me get through the times where I felt a little bit lost, where I needed direction. It's the fact that I still kept those wheels moving. So, all of this to say, Jake, I hope this even helps athletic directors, coaches, and understanding perhaps what an athlete goes through after they graduate. But pulling in those alumni, sharing those stories, simply storytelling. Alumni love to come back to speak about their experiences. And so that can maybe help. You just never know when a story can inspire another individual. So visualization, confidence, and never fear failure. So that is what I have today for Wednesday Wisdom, Jake. Thank you so much.
Well, you probably saw me scribbling notes down. As always, great stuff. I'm probably stealing a few of those lines for one of my presentations. Um, you and I were talking before this show, and I mentioned that it seems like we don't want to throw an entire generation under the bus, but it seems like many parents these days, and this has been going on for a while, are so worried that they don't want their child to experience failure. They don't want them to have these bad experiences, and they try to remove any chance of failure. And this doesn't work well in the world of athletics. As you know, that's how we get better. Trying a new skill, we don't get it right the first time. We might, quote, fail, but that's why we have a coach there to pick us up and help us move on. What are your thoughts? I am 100 years older than you, so a completely different generation. What are your thoughts on this idea of, removing failure?
Absolutely. So I would love to do more research into this to really find out what's going on. If, like you said, if is this just one person? Like I said, I don't want to draw any conclusive evidence, but it was really just that idea that sparked in my mind when I heard it. And so my perspective of never fear failure is, in gymnastics, for example, I mean, physically you fall and it's not always fun, Jake. I mean, we're talking slamming down on mats left and right. And that idea, which was so interesting, you never know at the time because you're so young. But literally, when you were falling on the mat, that was teaching you really good lessons that you would be able to take in your career. And I think that's how, when I talk about that confidence, when I moved forward and I pushed that send button and I knew that my business was launched, there was no turning back. We were, all systems go at that point. But it was that idea that I had already acknowledged in my mind, like, yes, there's going to be slip ups, there's going to be mistakes made, but I always resort back to what I learned in sport. And that's why sport is so powerful. And I just wanted to emphasize that. But the never fear failure, I I wish if I could go back, and this is, like I said, more directed towards ADs and perhaps even coaches on teams, but if in fact you could bring back alumni who could share their experiences, because that's as simple as a story, Jake, as we know. I mean, it really can inspire somebody else to hear your story and how you failed. I mean, I have failed so many times, and I'm not like proud to say it, but it is. It's inevitable. It's life. But that character development, that's the way I look at it, that there was lessons behind what I had to learn, whatever that may be. but it develops stronger character. And as we know, as the years go by, you become more wiser. So I look at it through a positive lens. No pun intended, Jake. Plenty of positivity. I had to throw that in. I mean, I just set myself up for that. But but no, I really would. I mean, all this to say, I would love to dive into more research to really see maybe what's going on with the thought process of different generations coming up and perspectives. But ultimately, it just kind of like stuck on my mind, and to really share that message that, the people who you think are just succeeding and nothing goes wrong. Like, no, behind the scenes, of course, mistakes are made. And I hope that could encourage somebody to move forward with their dream.
Right. No, and you're absolutely right. I think I can tell you there's a lot of anecdotal evidence. Athletic directors will tell you, coaches will tell you, they're working with parents. The coach is too demanding, and all these things. So it's this generation, and we got to figure out a way around it. Um, let's go and talk about plenty of positivity. For listeners that might not know, Courtney has a great podcast. It's called Plenty of Positivity. Has some tremendous guests. In fact, her guests are so good, I've actually stolen a couple of them. Although I have sent you a couple of guests that you're going to have on. How's the podcast going? I know it's going great. And what kind of feedback have you been getting from listeners?
Thank you so much, Jake. And I greatly appreciate all the individuals that you have sent my way. Truly excited to highlight them if they have yet not been on the podcast yet. But really, it has been a journey. It's coming up on a year now. And it really, I think, for me, it was the vision of just creating a more positive environment, a positive environment for individuals to come. And this kind of stems from, I would have to say, college age, if you will, all the way up, just adult, well experienced individuals in their area of study. But it really is like the mission is to build a positive community for a better tomorrow. I have the podcast, as you mentioned, and what's exciting is there is a variety of guests that come on from various backgrounds, but the one common theme, if you will, literally is positivity. So
Mhm.
we talk about perhaps maybe challenges along the way, or things that kind of maybe allowed the guest who's speaking like to take a different route and like wasn't really planned. But we always end on a positive note. And I think that's what's so important. And like I said, can inspire somebody to move forward with their own goals. And that's really like the main part of it. I want people to go for things. Like if it's been on your heart to do something, I really do. I feel like there's so much human potential. Just do it. You never want to regret it, Jake. And I mean, positive feedback. Yes, I've been so grateful. I mean, truthfully, the amount of support from individuals, whether it is coming on the podcast, sharing their story, or part of the book club. We have built a community. I want to give a shout out to Dion Nichols Germain, to really be able to not just have a book club where you highlight books, but to really pull people together and to promote continued learning. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak upon plenty of positivity on this, Jake. But I'm so excited to be here. And you have been doing fantastic. I want to give you a shout out too as well. So
Well, again, you are too kind. For our listeners, Courtney has just such a wide variety of guests, and it's not just plenty of positivity. You might be thinking, oh, it's rainbows and unicorns. No, these are people that have been very successful in their field. They shared their journey. But again, there's so much negative stuff out there. Courtney's podcast is definitely, if I may be cliche, a breath of fresh air. So, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for sharing, your valuable time with our listeners. And we're going to have to, get together here. I've been to Tallahassee a couple times. You said you're down Orlando, and you didn't even give me a call. So now I'm upset. Yeah.
I am so sorry, Jake. It was a quick turnaround, but that's my hometown. And when I go back, I go back to my like 12, 13-year-old self. I had to go visit all my coaches growing up. Like I said, girls that I've mentored. It was a fantastic trip. But next time, Jake, I'll have you on my list. list.
All right. Well, bring your husband down. We'll take Jan and I will take you guys out on the boat. We'll do a sunset cruise, have a beverage or two, and we'll have a good time.
Thank you so much, Jake, and thank you for having me today.
Let's before you go, let's let the listeners know how they can get in touch, both for the podcast and with you. And listeners, you have a tremendous resource here. Courtney, she is a professional speaker. She does programs. She does one-on-one and group professional development. How can they get in touch with with Plenty of Positivity and with Dr. Courtney Beck?
Thank you, Jake. So email Courtney at plentyofpositivity.com and LinkedIn. That is my primary platform. I also have Instagram too as well. So at Courtney Ann Beck for Instagram, LinkedIn. If you type in Courtney Beck, there may be a lot of Courtney Becks. So adjunct professor at Florida State University slash founder of Plenty of Positivity. But I would love for you to reach out. I would love to speak with you and yes, certainly connect and build our network together.
Well, Courtney, one more time, thanks again. We'll look forward to the next time we have you back on my podcast.
Can't wait, Jake. Thank you so much.
For listeners, we want to say thanks to you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do Wednesday Wisdom every week, and just about every day we try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Hey, before we go, of course, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Go and visit these sponsors. You're going to be glad you did. Gipper, Sideline Interactive, Home Campus, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, Hometown, Athletic Surveys, Huddle, Ohio University, and Snap Race. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast.